Hi, everyone. Welcome to Career Catalyst. I am Annabelle Baldi from BioBuzz, and really happy to have you guys all here today. So Career Catalyst was created to give life science professionals a space for honest, practical conversations about career growth and transitions. And we're going to be talking today about a common career transition in our industry, so moving between academia and industry. And we're very excited to have Sneha Saggurthi here today. It's going to be leading that conversation. So a little about Sneha. She brings experience across academic research, GMP manufacturing and training, as well as quality and compliance, and works closely to help people kind of navigate this transition. She's very much committed to workforce development, being an instructor at Frederick Community College's Biotech Bootcamp. She's also the co-vice chair of Young Women in Bio. So definitely check those out if you guys are interested. Before we do get started today, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for today's session. So we have Workforce Genetics and we have Biotech. Workforce Genetics has been connecting talent with high-performing teams for over 20 years and have evolved to be powered with AI, so making it faster and easier for growth-oriented venture-backed life science companies to build these great teams. So definitely check it out at workforcegenetics.com. And then, as always, want to give a big thank you to BioTrack, our other sponsor for today's session, for their hands-on biotech workshops. They've trained over 17,000 scientists. Definitely check them out at biotrack.com if you're looking for upskilling. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Sneha to let her introduce herself a little bit more and kick off today's session.
All right, so today we are going to talk about kind of bridging the gap between academia and industry. I think a lot of us know last year was a rough kind of year for the academia and the science community. And we do kind of see a lot of that inflow of people trying to go into industry now. So we'll talk a little bit about that and also some of the roles where people think that they could probably fit in the best. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so Annabelle did introduce the program already. So they do have Career Catalyst every Tuesday. Highly recommend you guys to actually start attending some of these. You have a lot of good SMEs that are speaking about it. I enjoy kind of having my little brown bag lunch and learn with it as well. So we can keep going. All right, so I'll just give a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Sneha Saggurthi. Currently, I am a quality compliance manager at a company called Cartesian Therapeutics. So what Cartesian does is we do CAR T-cell therapy, and we are located in the Frederick area. We did just hit phase 3. So for those of you who know what that means, it means we're pretty far along right before we file for commercialization. And very proud of it. I love my job, I can't lie. But I didn't always imagine myself in biotech. So just a background is I did a very hard career change as well. So I actually used to be pre-med. That's what I went to school for. And how I actually got into the industry is my mom broke her foot and she was kind of the breadwinner. And when you apply to med school, it's like $300, $500 a pop for application. So I Googled biology jobs and I got my first job in manufacturing in the industry. So that's kind of how I found my way in here, which kind of leads to my next point, which Annabelle, we can go to the next slide. Go ahead and few of things is that life science careers are not linear. So I don't think anybody plans ahead for exactly what's going to happen in their life. And I'm sure everyone in here has seen that. But same thing with careers, especially in our industry and our area, is they are very diverse. Although academia to industry, I will say, is one of the most common transitions, it may be something that you weren't expecting at one point as well. However, I will say guidance from going from academia into industry is often pretty vague or outdated or misleading. So I'm here to kind of help foster that change. I just put this in here because I do like this quote, and I feel like sometimes in my career when I felt like, I've left a job or I've lost a job, different things like that, I kind of take it out on myself a lot. But the big thing is just not taking like personally. It is our industry trend. For example, about 2 years ago, everyone would tell you get a job in the government. Government jobs are very, very secure. And now we kind of see that shift in that with the new RIFs and everything. So sometimes, again, don't take it personally. Sometimes you should be a little bit pulled back, but that may just help you launch a bit further. This one. And I apologize if you hear me cough. I'm just getting over that super flu. But one thing to start framing today's conversation is going from academia to industry or vice versa. A lot of people may see it as a step up or a step down, and it's really not. It's just kind of a shift, not a hierarchy. So when you look at the differences between academia and industry, a lot of them are around incentives. So academia, it's a lot of data. You're looking at your research trials, your experimentation. With industry, the incentives are a little different. If you work for a commercial company, it may be, again, centered around business, how much you can produce, how many lots you can do kind of in a certain time. So you have to keep that in mind. Timelines are also very different in the industry versus academia. So you may have a certain amount of time to get your experimentation done or your or whatever you are investigating. However, in the industry, timelines are very tight. So you will see timelines influence a lot more in the industry. And you have a lot more constraints because I will say I have walked into research labs before and had heart attacks because I'm like, this is the wild, wild west. You guys just do everything. But the biggest difference from I see going from academia to industry is we are a lot more regulated. So perfect example of it is BSc work. So in academia, you can go inside your biological safety cabinet. You can go out of your biological safety cabinet whenever you want, back and forth. Industry, perfect example, you cannot. You will not be able to leave the BSc. Once you put your hands in there, you are locked in there. You will have a runner because also you will always have a verifier every time you do everything. So I will say again that success in the industry depends on the fit, not exactly the prestige. So the question comes up very often of this transition into industry and exactly, I don't know where I fit, what kind of roles should I be applying for? Am I underqualified for industry roles? Or sometimes people think that their academic experience doesn't seem to count, or there is kind of this myth out there that having a PhD will cause people to not want to hire you. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's about being a little bit savvy about navigating it, which is what we'll do today. So we can go to the next little point. And the issue when you're transitioning, it's very rarely capability. It's really about translation. The way that I always kind of frame this is academia and industry have completely different languages. But you guys are doing and saying the same thing, they just don't understand each other. And it's kind of that role when you're applying to translate those skills over, which we'll talk about. All right, so this is just a question you can ask yourself. You can put it in the chat, I don't mind. But when you are submitting a resume, whether that's to academia, to industry, whether you're looking at a transition, what is one word you'd kind of want a recruiter to describe you as? And I think, you know, for me, if I was going to transition from industry to academia or vice versa, I'd want them to kind of see me as potential, right? As this is a good fit for this. So we'll talk about a few kind of tricks or tips around how to frame your resume too to make it an industry resume. So we can go to the next one. And this is kind of what it is. So I will say when I look at resumes, a lot of people think people are going to comb through your whole resume. Currently in the job market, if someone does have an open job, they are getting about 300 to 500 applications sometimes for these jobs. So after a vetting, there will be managers who look at your resume, and probably the most amount of time that I will look at your resume, at least for me personally, will be about 30 seconds. And that's just because, again, you have a huge influx of things going in. So having a strong industry resume is kind of laying out those skills right away so that I can just kind of peruse. So first thing you want to kind of put is your contact and professional summary. I would have my education and certification there. And then I would have my technical skills. So a lot of people, especially from academia, they kind of fall into this trap of not separating out their technical skills. They put it under their professional experience. But that's where you kind of want to say, okay, if you know how to pipette, small volume metrology is technical skills, separate that out. If you're good at scientific writing, instead of showing that kind of in the professional experience, separate that out into a technical skills kind of section. Because for me, that's an easy way to look at, okay, you have this is what I'm looking for. And this is a really good way to kind of match it up to the job description and those keywords as well, especially when you are using something like an AWS software that's going to screen through your resume. And then your professional experience, 3 to 5 bullet points per experience. And I know it hurts because it hurts me when I do my resume to not list everything that I've done. But I will say again, you want to have a short, quick, easy to read resume. So trying to summarize that up as much as possible. This might be an icky trick, but I will say ChatGPT does help when you are using resumes. So for example, when I'm doing mine, I'll probably put in my 8 to 10 bullet points of my experience. And I'll probably say, you know, shorten this into 3 and 5, make it appealing to executive level, different prompts like that. It does kind of help shorten it. I promise during the interview, that is where you will be able to talk to your full experience and share everything you did, but you just want your resume to be a really quick snippet. So what I would also say is optional for your resume is adding on your awards and accolades. So for that, I would say if you have won something that's very known in the industry, I would put them on there. I would say your volunteer groups as well. So let's say, for example, you're part of one of these industry groups like ISPE or Women in Bio, something like that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. I would say put it on there because, for example, Annabelle Saggurthi, I'm a part of Women in Bio Capital Region. If I see somebody else that's in Women in Bio on their resume, I'm more likely to have that stick out a little bit. So I would definitely put that on there. The one thing with resumes from academia is people like to list out all their publications and projects. I would not add that to the resume if I was going to apply to industry because, again, those skills don't translate over. We don't really look for that too much. What we're really looking for is those technical skills. So I could add a section in and say available upon request under projects and publications if we want to have it, and I would probably have that separate in the document. All right. So I'm just going to show you guys this because to this, it's just a list, right? It tells me strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, apples, fruits, different things like that. This is not what you want your professional experience to look like. You want to kind of paint a story with what you're saying with your professional experience and how it translates over into industry. So for example, if you say senior scientist at NIH, something like that, and you list out, you know, I did ddPCR, I did this in your professional experience. It just gives me a list. So if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of explain what I mean. But your resume shouldn't be a list. It should kind of be a task-based versus impact-based writing. You want to have that toward impact-based. So we can put the examples up there. So instead of something saying responsible for maintaining training records or responsible for maintaining lab documentation, something like that, you want to kind of streamline this into an impact-based. So say streamline training record management system, improving compliance and visibility across 6 departments. So what I'm going to want to look for, especially with industry, because we look for those things called KPIs, key performance indicators, we look for metrics, we look for success stories. That's what I would stream it in, is this is my responsibility, but this is also the impact it had from that. And your professional summary, again, I'm spending 30 seconds looking at your resume. The first thing I'm going to look at is your professional summary. So this should be about 3 to 4 lines capturing your value. So you want to kind of put your title, your identity, your years of experience, your core expertise, and your impact. So I can give you 2 examples from mine. So for me, I might be accomplished quality compliance leader with progressive experience supporting across cell and gene therapy sector. So again, you want to kind of put in those buzzwords that they're looking for at the job description. So if you are applying to industry, right, GXP, you want to get kind of known on those things. So good manufacturing practices, good clinical practices, good laboratory practices, because that's what we were looking for, is you have experience with regulations. You can also just say something like certified quality auditor, proven record of deploying these different things across standards. And another thing that I would say to add in your professional summary that kind of helps you stick out is add a little bit of your story and where you actually want to go. So for example, I could say, scientist with this many years of experience in academia, but now looking to transition into the industry into this type of role. And that kind of shows me this is something that you want and you actually want to pursue this role. All right, next one. All right, so your technical skills section, this is what I mean by separate these out. You can put the second one up there too. So I've kind of seen it both ways. I've seen it where people kind of blanket them together with a overarching bullet point, and I've also seen them kind of listed out. So again, this is separate from your work experience, right? Work experience, you want it to be very impact based. You want to write it that way that shows this is what I was responsible for. This is the impact I had. But your technical skills section is where you want to separate all of those technical skills out to kind of highlight for whoever's going to look at your resume. So for example, if you have experience with pipetting, again, small volume metrology, right? Put that in there, say pipette aid, micropipette, pH measurement, if you have HPLC. And that's what I would focus on are those very technical skills. A lot of people like to put things like communication or like Word, Office, anything like that in there. I would start taking off some of those soft skills because one, they are important, but if everybody's putting communication on their resume, it doesn't actually tell me, is this a good communicator? Is this a bad communicator? What does this really mean? But if you are trained and you are able to perform these technical skills, that's what I'm looking for in your next role. So again, I would separate that out. And go to the next one. And same thing with your experience section. You do want to write it like a leader. This is where you do want to put a little bit of your business hat on or businessman hat on, because again, we're looking for something called KPIs or key performance indicators. I'm looking for hard data of what you improved or what you added to your last organizations. Numbers are great. They give credibility. So you can say I gave percent improvement or number of audits that I conducted or money that I saved is a great one. So you could say I reduced this backlog by 20%, right? Or I increased efficiency by this many percent. But if you can't always quantify it, you can still qualify. So instead of just saying review documents for accuracy, you can say something like reviewed and approved 80 plus lab records or batch records monthly, ensuring 100% ready documentation for compliance. So it's really about, again, kind of selling yourself to your next company. So you kind of want to follow this framework, which is the CAR framework. So you want to put, this was the challenge that was there, this is the action that I contributed to, and this was the result, is how you really want to frame these. So again, kind of moving into that more impact-based. All right, and then exactly with academic to industry, we speak completely different languages. So for example, this is where, again, ChatGPT could be a great way to help, but I would suggest you find a mentor or you find a connection in the industry to kind of help you review this. So just like if I was going to go to a different country and I had no idea what the language was, I would get a translator. Find your little translator in either academia or industry. If you guys want to message me, feel free anytime. I love looking at resumes. But for example, you want to replace lab coursework or lab bench skills with hands-on training and lab documentation, aseptic technique, QC analysis. So different things like that is adding those buzzwords again that are going to get you caught by the industry a little bit more. Even with research, instead of saying investigated X, you can say executed experimental protocols aligned with GLP principles. So you want to, again, speak that language of I'm following some sort of regulation, I'm following good documentation practices, and kind of showing that in your resume. Next one. And a big one is integrity. So you actually want to put things that you did do. I will say in interviews, it is very, very easy to see who was honest and who was not honest in their resume. And another thing is the biotech industry is very small. We're very incestuous, for lack of a better word. So everybody knows everybody. Sometimes I might see that you worked at a certain company. I might call my friend that worked at that company and say, hey, what do you think about this person? So again, if they're going to say, that's not the role they had or that's not the title they had, you don't want to kind of have that impression. So be honest, but you do, again, still want to translate that language because you did do those things. You do have those skills. You just have to be able to sell those a little bit. All right, so this is a example of one of my students that came through the Biotech Bootcamp, but this is really kind of what we want. We want a short resume, I would say no longer than 1.5, 2 pages. Your name, your contact information, your professional summary, separate out those technical skills. And then again, your professional experience, you really just want about 3 to 5 bullet points. I wouldn't go more than that. Education, you can always put at the bottom. I kind of like putting it at the top if the job requires it. So if you see on that job description, advanced degree required, you want to put this at the top because it's what they're going to look for. And this is an example of a professional summary that actually got Charlie, so he was also one of my students, a lot of job offers because your professional summary, again, is a way to kind of sell yourself. So if it does say something like determined, driven professional looking to begin a career in the biotech industry and gain hands-on experience in this, again, it does show you that you want it. I've seen people where they have A++ resumes, A+ skills, but as soon as we start talking in the interview, it doesn't seem like they want the job or they are going to take the job for a little bit and hop on to something else. It's not likely to get hired because, again, we don't want to run away risk either. So that's where I would show a lot of drive or, hey, I want to be in this space as well when you are looking for these transitions. All right, a big one is networking. So I said, find your little translator in the industry, right? The way that I feel like people have done it the best is going to these networking events. So for example, you have Maryland Tech Council, you have BioBuzz. BioBuzz has many events every month that are great. ISPE, that's the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineers. If you're looking to go into engineering work or CQB, commission qualification validation, that's where you'd want to go. I'm a part of Women in Bio. I love it. I think most of my connections and growth has come through Women in Bio. So you kind of want to go market yourself, get some friends in the industry. And it sounds icky, but it is leaning toward a lot of who you know in the industry that can kind of give you that leg up when you are applying. And another one is upskilling. So regardless, let's say you have your PhD, you've gotten the highest form of education. You still want to keep learning because everything is a new space, right? I would suggest looking at some upskilling opportunities in Maryland. So Biotech or BioTrain, which are also sponsors of us, they do really good GMP workshops that you can attend. BioHub Maryland has a biomanufacturing intro course that they do about every month. ASQ, that's the American Society of Quality. They have very good courses that you can take and certifications as well if you're looking to go into quality. And kind of look at all of these different things. If you are an NIH scientist, please look at FAES. FAES actually does have a lot of courses they offer that do translate industry and academia skills as well. So you want to kind of explore where you can get those recent certifications because biotech's always changing. Let's say you got your master's in biotechnology 12 years ago, something like that. It's probably completely different now. So I'd always continuously learn, and adding these certificates or experience onto your resume can help you kind of translate those skills a little bit better as well. All right, so now we're probably going to end with a little bit of myth busters because there's a lot of myths about this transition. So we can go to the next slide. So a lot of people, and these are things that I've heard, is industry is just academia with better pay. But in reality, you do have faster timelines, you do have higher accountability. So again, if you need your data, if you need your clinical data by this time so you can file with the FDA, it's going to be a faster timeline. If you need to make these many lots in this week because that's what you agreed to with your client, faster timeline. Higher accountability, and you can actually make decisions made with incomplete data in the industry. So you're going to get some sort of data, you can kind of project what the rest is going to look like. And you have fewer solo projects. So in academia, you're very used to working alone. You will literally never work alone if you are in the industry. You will always need a verifier or more of a team ownership as well. So another big one with the differences is GXP. So we are highly, highly regulated in the industry to the point where even personal hygiene is regulated by the FDA. You're gowning, no makeup, no nothing in the clean room. Everything is regulated. So you do want to kind of get familiar with the GXPs that you're going into. If you are going to a company that has GMP, GMP is going to touch everything. Get to know some good manufacturing practices. If you are going into research, if you're going to MS&T, anything like that, which we'll talk about. GLP, you want to know, GCP, GDP, and GVP. So take some time to look these up before you translate over and be able to kind of speak to that in your resume also. All right. So another one that a lot of people say is leaving academia means that you're losing the science of things. One, you can always go back to the bench, and we still have bench work in the industry, but a lot of our decisions are driven around the science. And what we really lack, I will say, in the industry, which we're looking for, is people who can kind of explain that science to the business holders, right? And help us drive those decisions based on, okay, like when should we actually passage our cells next, right? What are these metabolite readings telling me? So it is very important to have that scientific background. And we do apply that through our systems, documentations, and teams. And there is a myth that you have to start over at entry level. So I will say again, it depends on how you market yourself. We can go to the next 2 bullet points. So titles may reset, right? You may have a senior scientist, principal scientist, and we don't really necessarily have that in the industry. It might translate to a manufacturing associate 2 or a QC analytical scientist 1. And that's just because, again, the impact is going to kind of have that. It's not necessarily a hierarchy. So it is a shift over. And then another one is academia doesn't translate to industry value, but academic skills are very valuable. You guys are still pipetting, you're still using aseptic technique, you just have to be able to market that. They're just labeled differently in the industry. So the titles, again, they don't increase. We don't really have principal scientist in like when you get into GMP or QC or quality or anything like that, but that capability doesn't disappear. So if you are looking for roles, you can go to the next one. These are the ones I would say are the best roles for transition, and I'll tell you why. So MS&T, that stands for Manufacturing Science and Technology. Those are the roles I would look for if I was coming from academia into the industry, and process development roles. So what they are is we have research and development, and then it goes through MS&T and PD to actually be able to become a GMP process. So it's kind of that middle space to make sure we can actually scale it up. Again, you don't have to be in full gowning every day on the floor if you go into these, and you do still work with that science to be able to actually translate it over and scale up. I think those are excellent, excellent roles for people coming from academia. Of course, research and development as well, but again, to be transparent, research and development roles are thinning out a little bit. But if you can find one in the industry, that is a great kind of segue into this as well. For regulatory affairs, if you're willing to do entry level and then top into the regulatory affairs world, it doesn't mean that you're going to get paid less, by the way, but a big part of regulatory affairs is scientific writing. So when you do file for your investigational new drug application, for example, or you file for BLA, you need to be able to scientifically write, this is the data we got from our animal studies, this is what it means, and be able to kind of justify that to the FDA to move on to the next level to say, you know, there's no issue in safety and dosing, different things like that. So that's a really good area if you like the decision making more. And if you're going into quality, QC analytical, I think, is the best place for people who have come from academia. It is complete bench work. You are just running endotoxin tests. So you're doing ELISAs, you're doing ddPCRs, HPLCs potentially. So it's all of the stuff that you guys do in academia very often. It just translates over a little bit better when you get into the quality. If you're going to go for something like manufacturing or QC microbiology, just realize you may have to be in gowning the whole time, and it is very highly regulated. Sometimes I will say when moving from academia to industry, it's a little bit of a very too different sometimes, unless you're willing to actually learn it, right? But I would say if you are going to transition, to be transparent, these are probably the best places you want to look. All right, and again, choosing the right first role, do not chase titles. And I will tell you this, even within industry, if you've never stepped foot out of industry, I have seen leaders chase titles where they move very quickly and climb very quickly. But once they start to get to those senior roles, like director or VP, they're not really able to contribute back because they never spent too much time marinating in that experience before they got there. I would say the same thing is don't chase titles, but chase adjacency. So go into a role where you can actually learn or take something out of it. So as long as you get your foot into the industry, I promise industry you can grow very quickly in here. But you also want to ask yourself, what's the right fit, right? Do I want to stay close to the science? So do I want bench work? Or do I want to be close to decisions to be able to say, this is what the science means, this is the business decision we're going to make from it? Or do you prefer execution, oversight, or translation? And my big takeaways are, again, some roles are stepping stones, not destinations. So I wouldn't wait for the perfect role. The goal for your first step in your transition is really exposure. So take it step by step. You're going to a new industry, you're going to see new regulations, new rules, essentially. So I would treat it as, this is my next step. This is not where my final destination is. And I will tell you, I've seen people, especially right now, we know the job market's a little shaky, where they're like, well, this is, the salary I want, the title I want, the times I want. And a lot of them are still looking, because I would say be a little flexible. Don't look for your perfect fit, but look at where you're going to learn the most. So any role you take, you will learn something. So again, sometimes you need to take a step back with that arrow to be able to be propelled forward. And that's kind of the last of my little spiel. I know it was pretty quick. I'm a little over time. Did add my LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect, but I think now we can probably move into Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Sneha. It's great. Yeah, did an awesome job going through those slides too. A lot of great information. So now we'll kind of enter the Q&A portion of today's session. So you guys can ask your questions, putting them in the chat. You can use the raise hand function. I'll help moderate for you, Sneha, to kind of get you started. I wanted to ask you, what if someone's like early in their academic career but considering industry, what are some steps that you'd recommend that they start to take now in order to kind of prepare themselves or make that transition smoother later on?
To the industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make friends. I think number one is make friends in the industry. I think that's your biggest thing, is having an ally that's already in there to be able to, one, kind of help you navigate that market, and two, kind of translate and tell you, these are probably the best roles. Connections matter. I will say I've known a lot of people get jobs just off of meeting somebody alone. And I would say also brush up on those GXP regulations. So again, kind of know what you're going into. That's why I really think the upskilling programs are important, because they do expose you to a lot of things that you will have to do in the industry, such as the particular gowning we use. So take it and actually see, like, is this a good fit for me, or do I want to explore something else in the industry?
Yeah. Awesome. Great advice. And then in terms of, so you're part of like Women in Bio, you're part of ISP, all these like awesome organizations. How would you suggest that people kind of find mentors or find some type of like sponsor in the industry coming from academia? What's the best way to go about that?
So it's going to sound so weird, and I know people are going to be a little nervous to do it, but honestly, just reach out. So if you find someone, so let's say you're exploring the idea of a manufacturing role or exploring the idea of a quality role, is find somebody in that role on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your best friend, by the way. If you guys do not have LinkedIn, that is your number one step homework after this. But you want to warm intro. So you don't want to just cold intro and say, like, here's me, can we do this? But you kind of want to say, hey, I looked up, your role in your company. I'm looking for advice about whether this would be a good fit for me. Do you mind hopping on a quick, like 10-15-minute call with me just to talk through it? That's a really good way to do it. And also leaving a thank you, is very important. So the impression you leave. I will say my little hack that has helped me is just buy a piece, or go buy a pack of like blank thank you cards, because nobody's getting handwritten thank you cards anymore. If you write it, you leave it with someone that actually left an impact with you, you're more likely to kind of build that connection.